Then on Sports Central, we go over our next schedule preview this offseason, and it's going to be over Florida State, one of the teams very much on the rise as we look forward to 2023. This is a team that was 10-3 in 2022. They finally got over the hump in the 2022 season. This has been a team that actually they've won a national championship in the past decade. They've just been a big disappointment in recent years, but 2022 was a different story. This team is on the rise, and they're already considered a potential dark horse playoff contender for the 2023 season. Why that is and whether or not that's a reality is we'll be talking about here today. We'll be going over the players that this team will be losing, who will be returning, and looking at their schedule for the first time this offseason. Let's get started looking at a quick recap of 2022. Once again, an outstanding season for Florida State. This team took a 3-game losing streak in the middle part of the season, but that was it for losses for Florida State this season. They beat Duquesne in week 0. That was a solid win there, dominant one. And then they took on LSU on the Sunday night of week 1, and this was an outstanding game here. Florida State got the win, 24-23. And I mean, both teams heading into that matchup really didn't have super high expectations heading into the 2022 season, especially Florida State. I mean, most expectations barely had Florida State getting up to 6 wins. And so for Florida State to win that game against LSU, and LSU being a team Brian Kelly, they were expected to be pretty improved in 2022, even though the ceiling was still fairly low. And I mean, I think that's when we kind of knew, Florida State was going to be a solid team. And it's, I mean, if you look back to week 1, you fast forward a few weeks, turns out both Florida State and LSU were big contenders in their respective conferences. And then they beat Louisville after their first bye week on the road. They beat Boston College 44-14. And then they had their 3-game losing streak. They lost to Wake Forest by 10, lost to NC State by 2, lost to Clemson by 6. So, I mean, 2 of those 3 losses were within 1 score. That NC State game especially was close. I mean, you flip 1 or 2 of those games, suddenly this team is 11-2 or even 12-1. And, I mean, so this team was very close to being a big-time national contender even in 2022. If you think about it that way, it was just that 3-game losing streak that was really detrimental to this team's chances of being a college football playoff contender. But after their second bye week, this team was, they were just dominant after that second bye week. They beat Georgia Tech 41-16, went to Miami, beat them 45-3, beat Syracuse the next week on the road 38-3. Syracuse, somewhat decent team in the 2022 season. And then they beat Louisiana, beat Florida, their rival, 45-38. This team was red hot heading into the postseason. They were in the Cheez-It Bowl against Oklahoma, got the win there 35-32 in what was one of the best games of bowl season there. And Florida State finishes out the season at 10-3 once again. An outstanding season for Florida State, and this team is expected to potentially be even better in 2023. Let's look forward to the roster and the returning production now going into next season. So Jordan Travis is coming back, the standout quarterback for this team. He really broke through in 2022. He put up 3,200 yards, 24 touchdowns, over 5 picks, 64% completion rate. Overall, great stats out of Jordan Travis. This is a quarterback that's got experience, and he played as one of the primary starters at quarterback in 2020 and 2021. Both seasons, he was mediocre at best, but 2022 was far and away his best season so far. So he's coming back, and I mean, if he can play up to that same level and even be improved in 2023, that's going to go a long way for Florida State. And this team in the backfield looks great. Trey Benson is coming back. Running back who put up over 1,100 yards this season, 9 touchdowns. Same with Lawrence Toafili, who put up just over 700 yards and 6 touchdowns. This team has got some tremendous depth in the backfield. You also got to consider Jordan Travis ran 400 yards this season and 8 touchdowns on the ground. They do lose their third running back, Trayshawn Ward, who put up just over 600 yards this season, but I'm not concerned with that one bit. This team has got plenty of depth in the backfield. Receiving core, Johnny Wilson's coming back, the top in receiving, and put up nearly 900 yards this season, 5 touchdowns. They do lose their second receiver, Ontario Wilson, but at least you got Johnny Wilson coming back, and you also got Micah Pittman, who was the third in receiving for this team, coming back. But you do lose your top tight end, your fourth in receiving, Cameron McDonald. This team does lose 2 on the offensive line, but I'm not too concerned about that. I mean, the offensive line was okay in 2022. Honestly, it could be even better in 2023. Wouldn't be surprised with the depth. And defensively, get this team is only losing 1 linebacker and 1 in the secondary. So this defense is returning a lot. This is going to be an experienced team, and this is going to be a dangerous team in 2023. If you're looking at the returning production, you thought they were good in 2022. Well, this team has got all the experience in the world heading into 2023. And this was a fairly young team in 2022. I mean, once again, they were kind of a surprise team in the 2022 season. I mean, I think my projection was 5 or 6 wins for Florida State going into last season. I wasn't the only one. Most projections had this team barely getting to 6 wins. And in the end, this team got up to 10 and very much could have had more. So excellent return production. They got depth. And this team a potential national contender in 2023? I very much think so. I mean, we've seen this team win a national championship in the past decade. That was a while ago now. I think it was 2014 season. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe 2013 season. But this is still a team that can be nationally relevant, and they've proven that in recent history. And I think this team is going to return right back to that same level in 2023, that's for sure. Transfer portal and recruiting going into next season. This team has been extremely active in the transfer portal. They have lost several players, though that is something to keep in mind, but recruiting at least has been excellent. But for the transfer portal, Gilbert Edmond, edge rushers come in from South Carolina. They also add Daryl Jackson, defensive lineman from Miami. You lose Malik McClain, receiver, to Penn State. Trayshawn Ward, the third running back on this team, is headed to K-State. DeMurray Tate, defensive backs in the transfer portal. Same with defensive back Sam McCall, who is off to Texas A&M. Jared Jackson, defensive lineman, is off to Michigan State. And safety Sidney Williams is off to Mizzou. Otherwise, Keandre Jones, offensive lineman, is coming in from Auburn. You also add an offensive tackle, Jeremiah Byers, from UTEP. And both of them could easily have immediate impacts, by the way. Both are pretty highly rated, so that's another reason not to be too concerned about the offensive line. Defensive back Fentrell Cypress is coming in from Virginia, defensive back. And then you lose Lloyd Willis, offensive tackle. Keyshawn Helton, receivers, off to Cincinnati. Rod Orr, offensive tackles, off to Toledo. Chambray Jackson, edge rushers, off to UMass. And Amari Gaynor, linebackers, off to North Carolina. Recruiting-wise, this team is 19th in the country, so they do have a top 20 recruiting class. They're third in the ACC. The ACC's actually got 3 teams inside of the top 20, which is, I mean, when you consider the SEC takes up most of the top 20, that definitely isn't too bad. I mean, you also got Clemson up in there. Clemson's number 11, and Miami. Believe it or not, the Hurricanes are the top team in the ACC when it comes to recruiting, currently with the 7th ranked class. Something to keep in mind. 4-star recruits. This team has got 8 of them, and then they've also got 9 3-star recruits. But that said, let's look at the schedule now going to next season. So you got LSU in a neutral location in week 1. That game is also on a Sunday night, similar to how it was this past season, except it's in Orlando this year round. So that's going to be a crucial game there. I mean, if you look at the game heading into last season, the 2022 season, both teams really didn't have extremely high expectations. But heading into 2023, different story. Both teams are expected to be national contenders. That's going to be a massive game there in week 1. Potentially one of the biggest, if not the biggest, of the weekend of week 1, and it comes on Sunday. So that's going to be a crucial one. Got to be ready for that, because that's going to be a resume builder. And at the end of the day, I'll say this as well. Florida State's schedule is brutal, and that's going to be, I think, this team's biggest enemy heading into next season is the schedule. It is tough from start to finish. You could definitely argue the toughest in the ACC and definitely one of the toughest in the country. So this team, talent-wise, has the potential to be a national contender, a college football playoff contender, but the problem is brutal schedule. So you got LSU there in week 1. You got Southern Miss, then after that, Boston College on the road, and then Clemson on the road in week 4. So 2 of your first 4 games are extremely crucial. I mean, those 2 middle games, Southern Miss, but you still have to go on the road to Boston College. I mean, you've only got one true home game in your first 4 games there, and that's against Southern Miss. And then October, you got Virginia Tech at home, Syracuse at home, Duke at home. So you got 3 straight home games. But Duke, keep an eye on them. I mean, yeah, Duke was a huge surprise team in 2022. They could be back in 2023. And Syracuse, Virginia Tech, never know about them. And then Wake Forest on the road on the 28th. You lost to them this past season. Wake Forest, I do expect to drop off quite a bit, though, heading into 2023. And then November, you got Pitt on the road. You got Miami at home, North Alabama, and then Florida on the road to finish out the regular season. So that Florida game also going to be important. It is also on the road in a tough place to play. So, but that said, let's look at September. So you got LSU in Orlando. I am going to favor LSU in that matchup. I do think it's going to be tougher to beat LSU this year round because we now know where both teams stand. Brian Kelly, I feel like that team's going to very much be an SEC contender, even more so in the 2023 season. So I'm actually going to favor LSU in that matchup right now. I'm not saying they're going to win because it's too early to predict anything, but I do want to favor LSU there as of right now. Southern Miss, easy win, should take care of them, no problem. You go on the road to Boston College. I will put that game in yellow, but I'm definitely favoring Florida State there. Boston College is a team that's, they're just a poor football team right now. And then Clemson on the road. I will favor you against Clemson on the road. Now, that's a game that could definitely go either way. I mean, it's still too early to predict anything, but Cade Klubnik, that team could be very much improved in 2023. They weren't going to get anywhere with DJ Uiagalelei. No, he just was not doing it for him. So Cade Klubnik brings potential to Clemson, I think, and heading into next season, the ACC should be pretty competitive. And Clemson and Florida State, that's going to be a crucial game. So September is crucial for Florida State. I mean, for most teams, it's just an easy month just to get into things. But for Florida State, it's not that way. This team has got two crucial games, and we're going to know a lot about Florida State after the first 4 games. And if they're 4-0 heading into October, rank this team in the top 2, top 3, because they are very much a team that should be up there and considered a major contender. But October, you're Virginia Tech. I'd say easy win. Syracuse and Duke as well. All 3 games are at home, so you should take care of all 3. Unless something happens. But yeah, all 3 of those teams should be middle of the road teams in the ACC. And then Wake Forest on the road, just because it's on the road, I'll put it in yellow, but I do think you take care of them. So October, a fairly straightforward month. You should, I'd say, go 4-0 in October. It's just September if you can get past there. Then November, you got Pitt on the road, also a crucial one there. I'll put that in yellow just because it's on the road, but I do expect a win there. Miami then at home is a really intriguing matchup. The Hurricanes were a disappointment in 2022, that is for sure. So we'll see if they can improve in 2023. That's a huge one there. And the North Alabama, easy win. And then Florida on the road, I'll also favor you against Florida. And I don't think the Gators are going to be terribly good next season, but it's still a road game in Gainesville, rivalry matchup. You never know. So you got to keep an eye on that one as well. But once again, it is a terribly brutal schedule for Florida State. And we've seen that for some teams in years past be a huge detriment to a team that's just showing so much potential. And Florida State is one of those teams that shows so much potential going into next season in every area. This team could very much be a national contender. I mean, you look at how much they improved over 2022, how they finished off the season, the returning production, everything just fits in perfectly for this team to be a national contender. But the problem is the schedule is just brutal, especially in September. You cannot, I mean, you just, through September is your most crucial month. I mean, LSU in week 1, got to win that one to start off the season. Then Clemson's a crucial one in the ACC there in the conference on the 23rd. So, I mean, there's not much room for error here for Florida State. And so, that said, the ceiling, I think, is 12-0 for this team. But the odds that they go 12-0, I think, are pretty slim just because of how tough of a schedule it is. So, I'm going to say I think 10-11 is kind of your ballpark for wins in the regular season. The floor is going to be 8-4 just in case if this team does disappoint in 2023, just because, I mean, in 2022, this team did exceed expectations. So we could see this team disappoint, and the floor could be pretty low, 7 or 8 wins. But I think in the end, for sure, this team has got the potential and the talent. All signs point to this team being a big contender, but the schedule is brutal, and especially in September, it's going to be critical to get those wins against LSU and Clemson. But that said, let me know your thoughts in the comments below on Florida State, and I appreciate you guys all watching as always. Definitely an interesting team as we look forward to next season. But that said, appreciate you guys all watching as always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. Catch you on the next one.